Hello, welcome to Unlocking Buddhism. Have you ever wondered what truly counts as a miracle? Is it walking on water, healing the blind, or feeding thousands with a few loaves of bread? Or could the real miracle be something far more intimate, like transforming a restless mind into a peaceful one, or turning suffering into wisdom? Long before the stories of Jesus spread through the lands, there lived a man named Siddhartha Gautama, later known as the Buddha. Born into royalty, he left behind comfort, luxury, and even his family, not to escape the world, but to understand it. And what he discovered wasn't written in the clouds. It was carved into the silence of his own heart. The Buddha didn't split seas. He didn't call fire from heaven. But he did something perhaps even more extraordinary. He saw clearly. He looked into the roots of suffering and found a way to uproot them. He taught that we are not trapped by fate or punished by gods, but shaped by our own minds, and that liberation is not a gift, but a discipline. That's the miracle. A human being, unaided by divine intervention, discovered a path to end all suffering, not just for himself, but for anyone willing to walk that path. Before water turned to wine, the Buddha turned confusion into clarity. And yet, we rarely call this a miracle. In this video, we're going to explore why that matters, and how redefining miracle might change the way you see your own life. We'll walk through the story of Siddhartha's awakening, the quiet revolutions he sparked, and how these ancient insights still echo through our modern lives. More than 2,500 years ago, in the northern region of ancient India, a prince was born into a life of luxury and protection. Siddhartha Gautama was his name. His father, a powerful king, wanted to shield him from all forms of pain. Inside the palace, everything was designed to prevent suffering. No sick people, no old age, no death. Only youth, health, and pleasure. But the world cannot be hidden forever. One day, Siddhartha ventured outside the palace walls. There he encountered three things he had never seen before: an old man struggling to walk, a person ravaged by illness, and finally, a lifeless body. These sights struck him deeply. Everything he had taken for granted, strength, youth, stability, now seemed fragile. Then he saw a fourth figure, a wandering ascetic, peaceful and calm. That man had left everything behind to seek a truth beyond decay. That moment changed Siddhartha, not through magic, but through understanding. It wasn't a supernatural revelation. It was a human realization. Life includes suffering, and if that is true, there must be a way to face it. This realization was the first spark of a long journey, not toward escape, but toward clarity. He left the palace quietly. He wasn't running away. He was searching. He trained under the greatest spiritual teachers of his time. He practiced meditation and subjected his body to intense discipline. For 6 years he lived with almost nothing, eating barely enough to survive, holding his breath for long periods, rejecting all comfort. But this extreme self-denial only weakened him. It didn't bring peace. Then, something ordinary happened. A young village girl named Sujata offered him a bowl of rice milk. Tired and emaciated, Siddhartha accepted it. This small moment, this act of nourishment, became the seed of another great realization. Suffering doesn't end through pain or indulgence. It ends through balance. He called this insight the middle way, neither extreme pleasure nor extreme self-punishment. He sat beneath a Bodhi tree and made a vow not to rise until he had seen reality as it truly is, not as he wished it to be. Not through faith or belief, but through direct personal understanding. Days passed. He was tempted by fears, memories, longings. Mara, the personification of illusion, tried to unsettle him, but Siddhartha remained still. He observed every thought and sensation, not reacting, only watching. Then it happened. Not with thunder, not with divine voices, but with quiet certainty. He saw clearly that all things arise and pass away, that clinging creates suffering, that freedom is possible. This moment was the awakening. Siddhartha became the Buddha, the awakened one. That is the miracle, A human mind, trained through attention and insight, broke free from the cycles of ignorance and craving. No intervention from the heavens, no cosmic force, just one man, sitting still, seeing reality without distortion. A clarity so complete that it ended fear, ended confusion, ended the belief in a permanent self. He could have kept this insight to himself, but he didn't. He walked for decades, sharing what he discovered with anyone who was ready to listen. And what he shared was not a doctrine, but a method, a way to practice, a path. His teachings transformed lives, not because of charisma or divine status, but because they worked. Take the story of Angulimala, a feared criminal who had killed many people. When he saw the Buddha walking calmly, he chased after him, but he couldn't catch up. The Buddha replied, "I have already stopped." Those words hit Angulimala with unexpected force. He wasn't being judged. He was being invited to wake up, and he did. He renounced violence and became a monk. Or Siddhartha Gautama, a young mother who came to the Buddha carrying her dead child, desperate for a miracle. The Buddha told her to find a mustard seed from a home untouched by death. She visited many homes, but every family had lost someone. Through this journey, she understood that death was not a punishment. It was a part of life. Her grief transformed into wisdom. These are not just old stories. They are examples of how transformation happens, not through supernatural means, but through insight. And this is what the Buddha offered, the path to inner change that doesn't rely on outside forces. When people think of miracles, they imagine events that defy nature. But what if the real miracle is to see nature, human nature, clearly, to respond to pain with wisdom, to meet fear with steadiness, to live without clinging or resentment? The Buddha didn't erase suffering from the world. He showed that it was possible to live without being enslaved by it. That is why we say he performed a miracle, not by bending reality, but by understanding it so deeply that it no longer trapped him. Before Jesus turned water into wine, the Buddha turned a restless, confused mind into one of peace and compassion. And he showed others how to do the same. The miracle wasn't in what he did for others. It was what he awakened in them, a mind capable of seeing truth, acting with kindness, and resting in freedom. The core teaching illustrated by the Buddha's life is simple, but radical. Suffering exists, but it is not random or eternal. It has causes, and because it has causes, it can cease. This is the essence of the Four Noble Truths, the foundation of Buddhist wisdom. What made the Buddha's insight revolutionary was not that he revealed something supernatural, but that he revealed something accessible. He didn't claim special status. He didn't ask for worship. He pointed to a path, the Noble Eightfold Path, that anyone can follow. This is what separates the Buddha's miracle from the kinds we often imagine. It wasn't a single event that defied the laws of the world. It was a permanent shift in how he related to experience. And he made it clear, you can do the same. This path is not mystical. It is practical. It invites us to examine how we think, speak, and act. It challenges us to observe our habits of craving, anger, and delusion. And it offers tools to untangle those patterns. These tools include mindfulness, ethical conduct, effort, and meditation. Together, they train the mind to see clearly and to respond wisely. The miracle is not that a man awakened. The miracle is that awakening is possible and repeatable. Again and again, throughout Buddhist history, people from all backgrounds have walked this path and seen results. Lay people and monks, rich and poor, educated and illiterate. The path does not favor one type. It favors sincerity and effort. Understanding this transforms how we think about freedom. In many traditions, salvation is something granted, a gift given by a higher being. In Buddhism, liberation is something grown. It is cultivated, like a seed becoming a tree. No one can do it for you, but anyone can do it. This teaching removes both fear and passivity. If no God is punishing or rewarding us, then our suffering is not a curse. It is a teacher. If no one is coming to save us, then our liberation depends on us. And that is empowering, because the very habits that keep us stuck can be undone. The very mind that feels lost can find its way. And this brings us to karma, another concept often misunderstood. Karma is not fate. It is not cosmic justice. It is cause and effect. Every action, thought, and intention leaves a trace. These traces shape our experience. If we plant seeds of anger, we will reap restlessness. If we plant seeds of generosity, we will reap peace. The Buddha realized this law in himself. He saw how his thoughts shaped his emotions, how his emotions shaped his actions, and how his actions shaped his life. He saw this clearly, not as belief, but as direct insight. That's why he could say with confidence, liberation is not only possible, it's inevitable for those who walk the path fully. Not because it happened before Jesus in a chronological sense, but because it redefined what transformation means. It shifted the focus from divine power to human potential, from waiting for blessings to living with awareness. The Buddha's miracle was the full realization of a truth that had always been there, but rarely seen, that the mind, when trained, becomes the source of freedom. And the teachings he left are not hidden in secret texts or mystical rituals. They are practical guidelines for anyone willing to observe reality honestly. When we look at the lives he touched, from kings to beggars, we see that he didn't offer escape. He offered insight. He didn't ask for blind belief. He asked people to look for themselves. "Don't believe me," he said. This invitation to investigate, to reflect, to practice, is the foundation of the Dhamma, and it remains relevant today. In a world filled with uncertainty, conflict, and distraction, the Buddha's path offers something deeply stabilizing. It teaches us that peace is not found by changing the world, but by changing how we relate to it. That clarity doesn't come from controlling others, but from understanding ourselves. And in this sense, every moment becomes an opportunity for a quiet miracle. When you pause before reacting, when you listen deeply, when you forgive, let go, or stay present with discomfort. These are not small things. These are steps on the same path the Buddha walked. He didn't awaken to escape the world. He awakened to live in it with freedom. And that freedom is not reserved for saints. It is available to anyone, including you. We often imagine spiritual growth as something that belongs to another life, quieter, simpler, freer from distractions. But this belief delays awakening. What the Buddha revealed is that the path to freedom doesn't begin in retreat. It begins exactly where you are, in the mess and momentum of daily life. The miracle, as the Buddha taught, is not in escaping reality, but in engaging with it differently. It's in how we meet the same traffic, the same noise, the same tired body, but with a new mind. This shift doesn't require a different world. It only requires different attention. Imagine waking up in the morning, already behind schedule. You rush to the kitchen, spill your coffee, snap at a family member. Your day begins in agitation. That moment right there can feel insignificant, just part of a bad morning. But in truth, it is a moment charged with karmic momentum. The irritation you carry will echo in every interaction. It will shape your decisions, your tone, your sense of self. Now imagine that same morning, but with one pause, one breath before speaking, one small moment of recognition. This is stress, not truth. That pause doesn't erase your tiredness, but it interrupts the chain. It softens the sharpness. That, too, is a form of liberation. Not final, but real. The Dhamma lives in these moments. It's in the parent who chooses patience when every nerve is frayed, in the friend who listens fully without rehearsing a reply, in the worker who completes a task with care, even when no one is watching. It's in the person who apologizes without needing to win, who forgives without needing to forget, who lets go of a grudge before it hardens into a wall. These are not dramatic gestures. They don't look like enlightenment from the outside, but they are the foundation of it. Awakening doesn't come from what you feel. It comes from how you respond, again and again. The Buddha's teaching on karma becomes concrete here. We are not punished by a cosmic judge. We are shaped by our patterns. If you respond to pain with anger, it grows. If you respond with awareness, it fades. Your life is not dictated by fate. It is built moment by moment by the habits you nurture or abandon. Even our suffering becomes a field of practice. Illness, loss, disappointment. These are not obstacles to the path. They are the path. The Buddha never promised a life without hardship. He offered a way to meet hardship without collapse. A person dealing with chronic pain might use mindfulness not to erase the pain, but to distinguish between the pain and the fear that surrounds it. That clarity can reduce suffering. A person navigating grief might use the breath to stay grounded, not to escape emotion, but to prevent being overwhelmed by it. These are not metaphors. They are real practices with real effects. Everyday Dhamma also reveals itself in how we consume. The Buddha taught about moderation and restraint, not to deprive us, but to free us. In a world driven by craving, the choice to say, "I have enough," is radical. Choosing to spend less, waste less, compare less, these become acts of liberation, not sacrifice. Even digital life becomes a field of training. The urge to check, to scroll, to react, it is all rooted in the same habits the Buddha described: restlessness, craving, distraction. When we pause before reacting to a message, when we close a tab instead of feeding anxiety, when we log off with awareness instead of compulsion, we are practicing. This is the depth of the Buddha's gift. Nothing is excluded. No part of life is too ordinary, too busy, too broken to hold the seeds of awakening. You can be in a hospital waiting room, in a crowded subway, in an argument, in silence. The practice meets you there. The path doesn't ask you to be perfect, only present. It doesn't require understanding everything, only the willingness to see clearly, right now. And with time, a new way of living begins to take root. Less reactivity, more patience, less self-centeredness, more space for others. The mind becomes lighter, not because the world changed, but because your relationship with it did. In this way, the Dhamma becomes not just a teaching, but a way of being. And the miracle, once seen as something distant, becomes the quiet, daily discipline of showing up with awareness and choosing, moment by moment, not to add to the world's confusion, but to be a light within it. If we take a quiet breath and look back, what do we see? A prince left a palace not because he was disillusioned with pleasure, but because he was honest enough to recognize that no amount of comfort could protect him from impermanence. He saw aging, he saw illness, he saw death, and instead of turning away, he chose to look deeper. That choice is the foundation of the path, not the renunciation of the world, but the renunciation of ignorance. We live surrounded by distractions, offered endless ways to avoid discomfort, to delay truth, to edit reality. But the Buddha's teaching invites us in the opposite direction, not to escape, but to sit still, to observe, to understand. That in itself is a miracle in a world that values speed over stillness and noise over clarity. And what did the Buddha find in that stillness? Not a new doctrine, not a revelation from above, but a direct and clear understanding of how suffering works and how it ends. He saw that craving binds us, that aversion burns us, and that ignorance blinds us. And he saw that all of these can be untangled through effort, wisdom, and compassion. This is not a comfortable teaching. It doesn't promise reward for faith or protection from pain. What it offers is something much more powerful: responsibility, the ability to respond rather than react. The ability to meet life as it is, not with fear, but with clarity. When we think of miracles, we often imagine things that change the world around us. But the Buddha redefined the miracle as the transformation of the mind, that a person, fully human, can uproot greed, hatred, and delusion, and live with understanding. That is the miracle. And that miracle didn't end with him. It began with him. For over 2,500 years, this path has been walked by ordinary people, in homes, in villages, in cities, in forests. They didn't always walk it perfectly. They didn't always feel ready, but they began. And that beginning, however small, is sacred. The greatest lesson the Buddha left us is not a concept. It's a permission that you too can begin, right where you are. With this very breath, you don't need to feel wise. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to turn toward your life, gently, honestly, and begin to see, to notice the patterns that repeat, to feel the weight of reactivity, to taste the freedom of a single pause. And as you walk, something changes, slowly, subtly. The mind softens, The heart steadies. The world, which once felt so sharp, becomes more workable. Not because it changed, but because you did. This is not a path of isolation. It's a path of connection, to reality, to others, to yourself. As you become more present, you become more available, more compassionate, more real. There will still be challenges. Pain won't vanish. Loss will come. But your relationship with these things will change. And in that change, you will taste the peace the Buddha spoke of, not as a reward, but as a natural result of knowing things as they are. This is the invitation, to stop waiting for the world to deliver a miracle, and to realize that the miracle is already unfolding in your capacity to be aware, to care, to learn, and to be free. You don't need to believe in magic. You only need to believe that your mind can be trained, that your heart can open, that your life can become the ground of awakening. And when you live like that, you join the lineage of the Buddha, not through worship, but through practice. You become part of a quiet revolution that began long before us and will continue long after, carried not by noise or spectacle, but by simple presence. And maybe, in the stillness of your own heart, you'll come to see that the greatest miracle is not something that happened once long ago, but something that can happen now, in you. As we come to the end of this reflection, the question still echoes: what makes a miracle? The answer perhaps is not in grand displays of power or supernatural events, but in the quiet transformation of a human being, from confusion to clarity, from craving to peace. That was the Buddha's miracle, not something done to impress the world, but something lived in such depth that it continues to awaken hearts, even now. And while this phrase may sound provocative, its purpose was not to compare greatness or ignite division, but to invite a re-examination of what a miracle truly means. In the Buddhist sense, a miracle is not something that breaks the laws of nature. It is something that aligns us with them. To tame a restless mind, to let go of what no longer serves, to meet pain with equanimity. These are not just mental exercises, but radical acts of liberation, and they are available to each of us. The Buddha never asked to be worshipped. He asked to be understood.
His miracles were not proofs of divinity, but demonstrations of potential, the potential that exists in every mind here and now. So let this be your takeaway. You don't have to wait for divine intervention. You don't have to be special, chosen, or perfect. You only have to be willing to see, willing to change, willing to walk, step by step, toward understanding. And if you do, the miracle doesn't remain in the past. It comes alive in your breath, your presence, your choices.
This is the path the Buddha offered, not an escape from the world, but a new way to walk within it, with clarity, with compassion, with wisdom. So I invite you now, not just to reflect, but to take a step. It can be small, a pause before you speak, a breath before you react, a gentle look inward even when it's uncomfortable. That step, repeated, becomes a path, and that path, walked sincerely, becomes the miracle. If this message stirred something in you, a memory, a question, a sense of possibility, take a moment to honor it. Leave a comment below with one word that captured your attention. Was it freedom, stillness, clarity? That word might not only guide your journey, but also inspire someone else who's just beginning theirs. And if you found value here, consider sharing this video with someone who might be quietly looking for the same peace. Sometimes the right message at the right moment can change everything. Until next time, may your steps be steady, and may your heart remain open to the subtle miracles unfolding all around you.